Imagine getting a call from the daughter who hasn't spoken to you in like 3 years.
Yeah, just total, absolute silence.
Right. You have literally no idea why she cut you off, but the silence has just been slowly eating you alive. And then, out of nowhere, she's on the line.
And she wants you to walk her down the aisle, which is, I mean, it's wild.
It is. But to do it, you have to pack up, drive to this highly remote, fortified compound in New Hampshire, and sign a stack of non-disclosure agreements just to get through the front gate.
Which is completely normal for a family wedding, right?
Oh, totally normal. You basically surrender yourself to a billionaire family that, as you quickly realize, seems to be hiding a literal body. So do you turn the car around and save yourself?
Or do you walk into the compound because, well, it's the only possible way to get your kid back?
Exactly. Welcome to the Dupe Dive. Our mission today is unpacking a massive stack of highly polarized book reviews. And when I say polarized, I mean we are looking at everything from like glowing, tear-soaked 5-star reviews to some incredibly angry, capital letter 1-star rants.
People were very fired up about this one.
They really were. We're pulling from avid readers, book blogs, and Goodreads to look at Jason Rekulak's latest thriller, The Last One at the Wedding. If you're listening to us right now, you might be wondering whether to invest your time in this book.
Especially if you were one of the millions who absolutely loved his previous smash hit, Hidden Pictures.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this, because looking at the sources, one reviewer perfectly described the setup as a Temu version of the movie Taken.
Oh, I love that comparison.
Right. Except in this version, the dad knows exactly where his daughter is, but she absolutely does not want to be saved from the people holding her.
Yeah, and you know, I see you noticing my backdrop today. We've traded our usual studio for this luxurious, heavily wooded New England lakeside estate. We really need to set the mood here.
It definitely feels very ominous.
It is, because what's fascinating here is why this specific book is causing such a massive, visceral stir among readers. It marks a complete and total departure from the supernatural elements of the author's past work.
So no ghosts this time around.
None. If readers go in expecting the creepy childhood drawings and ghosts of hidden pictures, they are going to hit a brick wall. The author has just abandoned the paranormal entirely. Instead, he plunges straight into grounded, gritty domestic suspense.
And some pretty intense class-based family drama, right?
Exactly. So we leave the ghosts behind and dive into something that is, honestly, arguably much scarier.
A sudden, jarring reunion between a very blue-collar father and his newly upwardly mobile daughter. We should probably introduce our protagonist here, Frank Szatowski.
Right, Frank. He's a 52-year-old Gulf War veteran.
He is. He's a widower. And his defining characteristic, like the thing he anchors his entire identity to, is his 26-year spotless driving record for UPS.
That is his pride and joy.
It really is.
Yeah.
This is a guy who wears his Costco and Walmart fashion like a total badge of honor. For Frank, taking someone to Red Lobster is pulling out all the stops for a fancy night out.
He's the quintessential working class everyman. He's completely rigid in his routine, but the emotional engine driving him is just this immense pain.
Because of the estrangement.
Right. Frank has been totally estranged from his daughter Maddie for 3 years. And the brilliant thing the author does, and reviewers heavily noted this, is that initially we have no idea why.
We're just as in the dark as Frank is.
Exactly. We just know that Maggie left for college, transitioned into this elite Boston tech world, and just slammed the door on her past.
And Frank just carries this crushing burden of guilt. He assumes the rift is his fault, even if he literally can't pinpoint his exact crime.
Which is what makes the inciting incident so incredibly jarring.
Yeah, out of the blue, Maggie calls, not to catch up, not to ask for an apology. She calls to invite him to her wedding, asking him to walk her down the aisle.
To a guy she's known for, what, 6 months?
Yes, she is marrying Aiden Gardner, the son of a tech titan, after 6 months. Now, hold on, wait, a 3-year estrangement, and suddenly she wants him to walk her down the aisle to a guy she barely knows.
It's a lot to process.
Isn't that an immediate, flashing, neon red flag for any parent? Like, regardless of the billionaire status, if I'm Frank, my alarm bells are deafening. I'm assuming it's a cult, a scam, or a hostage situation.
Well, yeah, but you're applying rational risk assessment to a situation governed entirely by primal grief.
Okay, that's fair.
It's easy for us on the outside to see the red flags, but looking at the psychology of the reviews, the readers who deeply connected with this book understood exactly what Frank was doing.
Because he just wants his kid back.
Exactly. When you are totally starved for your child's affection, logic completely evaporates. Frank is well aware that the sudden invitation makes zero sense.
And he knows the extreme wealth of the Gardner family is intimidating and, frankly, super suspicious.
Right, but the desire to mend that fractured relationship simply overrides his basic survival instincts. He is willing to overlook all of his extreme discomfort just for a second chance.
So you're saying he sees the red flags, but he just paints them green because he wants to be a dad again?
That is spot on. He is operating purely on the intoxicating hope of reconciliation. So he packs up his car and makes the long drive to New Hampshire.
And he brings some backup, right?
He does. He brings along his sister, Tammy, and her 10-year-old foster child, Abigail, because he feels he desperately needs some kind of buffer.
Well, he definitely needs a buffer because hope doesn't automatically translate to charming behavior. And that brings us to how Frank actually acts on the page.
Which is really the epicenter of the controversy surrounding this book.
Absolutely. If you look at the reviews, they completely fracture into two warring camps over Frank's personality. It's wild.
The reception to Frank is basically a masterclass in reader empathy versus reader tolerance. Modern audiences have very specific expectations for who gets to be a protagonist.
They really do.
Yeah.
On one side of the divide, you have reviewers like one named Nialufer in our source stack who were literally moved to tears by Frank.
They really resonated with him.
Yeah, they looked at him and saw this flawed but deeply loving single parent who is just trying to protect his child in a world that constantly makes him feel small and inadequate.
They connected with that vulnerability.
Exactly. But on the other side, oh man, it gets rough.
Yeah.
The one-star reviews did not hold back.
Not even a little bit.
They heavily criticized Frank. I mean, they called him a male chauvinist, an Archie Bunker type, and a bumbling, judgmental jerk.
And looking at the specific examples the reviewers cite, you can kind of see why they winced.
Oh, for sure. For instance, Frank complains internally about companies, and this is a quote, hiring women now too because of that Me Too stuff.
Yikes. Yeah, that's going to alienate some readers.
Definitely. And he sees a couple with a significant age gap and aggressively judges them in his head as a mutation of human biology.
He is not subtle.
Not at all. And then there's this weird, stubborn pride when they arrive at their guest cabin on the estate. The place literally has bugs, but he flat out refuses to call an exterminator.
Right. He prefers to just bash around like a bull in a china shop. He's is exhausting.
That's the perfect word for it. Exhausting. Which is probably why the only universally beloved character in this entire book, across every single review we looked at, is Abigail, the 10-year-old foster child.
Yeah, Frank initially finds her incredibly annoying.
But he eventually warms up to her. And reviewers latched onto her as the only pure, uncomplicated element in the novel. So here's where it gets really interesting if you're listening to this. Ask yourself, how much grace would you give a father who says offensive things if you knew he was terrified for his daughter's life?
That's a tough line to draw.
It is. Where is your personal line between he's an outdated jerk and he's a desperate protector? If we demand perfect, highly likable characters in our thrillers, aren't we just asking for fairy tales?
It's a great point.
Doesn't a flawed, grumpy guy make the impending danger feel more grounded?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, modern thrillers actually rely on unlikable, prejudiced narrators specifically to create narrative friction.
Interesting, so it's intentional.
Very intentional. Frank's prejudices, his chauvinism, his sheer stubbornness, they are mechanical tools for the author. They make him an incredibly unreliable filter for the reader.
Because we can't fully trust his judgment.
Right. When Frank arrives at the estate and immediately distrusts the wealthy groom and his family, the reader is forced into a state of doubt.
We have to ask ourselves a really critical question. Is the Gardner family actually evil and hiding dark secrets, or is Frank just an intensely judgmental outsider projecting his own class anxiety onto them?
Exactly. So his flaws basically obscure the truth.
We don't know if his internal GPS is glitching because the road ahead is actually dangerous, or if he just hates the scenery because it's too rich for his blood.
That is the exact tension the author is mining. Frank's internal biases are constantly wrestling with the external reality of the setting.
And that setting is practically a character all its own.
Oh, absolutely. Frank's blue-collar worldview crashes headfirst into the gardener's extreme wealth the moment he pulls up to the gate.
Let's explore that collision, actually. The wedding is taking place at Camp Osprey. This is a former summer camp in New Hampshire that has been bought and transformed into a deluxe, sprawling retreat for Aiden's tech titan father, Errol Gardner.
But calling it a retreat makes it sound relaxing. It honestly sounds terrifying.
It really does. The reviews consistently point out this sinister, oppressive atmosphere.
The author is using extreme wealth not just as a pretty backdrop, but as a mechanism of control. The property is a virtual fortress.
Yeah. There's intense, intimidating security everywhere. Guests arriving for a family wedding are forced to sign strict privacy documents and non-disclosure agreements.
NDAs for a wedding.
Right, and they have to get parking permits just to enter the grounds. One reviewer brilliantly described it as an attractive prison camp.
Attractive prison camp.
Mm.
Wow. What a chilling way to describe luxury.
It really paints a picture, and the people running this camp sound just as bizarre. You have the groom, Aiden, described as this introverted artist who paints highly eerie portraits.
And he is completely evasive, showing zero interest in getting to know Frank.
Then you have Aiden's father, Errol, who is an overprivileged billionaire entirely surrounded by yes people who just cater to his every single whim.
And we definitely can't forget the missing matriarch.
Right. The mother of the groom is practically non-existent. She is locked away in an upstairs bedroom with severe migraines.
Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly. Multiple reviewers compared her to the mad aunt in the attic from a Gothic novel. It's so unsettling. But it's not just the family that gives off this toxic vibe.
No, Frank quickly discovers that the locals in the surrounding New Hampshire town are actively, openly hostile toward the Gardners.
Which culminates in the specific inciting incident for Frank's amateur investigation.
Yes, Frank receives an anonymous photo hinting that Aiden, his future son-in-law, is connected to a 21-year-old local girl who went missing a year ago.
So picture this. Frank is sitting in this luxury compound surrounded by private security guards and NDAs, holding a photo that suggests his daughter is marrying into a disappearance.
What a nightmare.
It is. But what can he do? The Gardner family's wealth acts like a narrative Faraday cage.
Ooh, a Faraday cage. I really love that analogy.
Think about it. No outside rules can penetrate it, and Frank's normal blue-collar logic can't send a signal out. It's like Frank brought a pocket knife to a tank fight.
That is so accurate. He is entirely cut off from the laws of consequence that govern the real world.
Because no matter what Frank suspects, their money completely insulates them.
And that is exactly the broader insight we need to pull from this. The book reveals a terrifying truth about hyperwealth.
That it bends reality.
Yes, money doesn't just buy comfort. It buys immunity from social contracts. It creates a reality distortion field where the rules simply do not apply.
And for Frank, this creates an agonizing catch-22.
He realizes that if he pushes too hard to uncover the gardener's secrets without ironclad proof, he risks alienating Maggie forever.
She will just write him off as a crazy, jealous old man, so he has to choose. Speak up and lose her, or stay silent and watch her walk into potential danger.
That is unbearable.
It's an impossible choice. And that tension dictates the pacing and the atmosphere of how this powder keg finally explodes. Because the way the plot actually unravels was highly debated among the reviewers.
Right. Structurally, the book is divided into 5 acts with very short, fast-paced chapters.
Which usually implies a lightning-fast, action-packed read, like you expect a thriller to sprint.
But reviewers repeatedly describe it as fundamentally a slow burn.
Exactly. The author isn't relying on car chases or shootouts. He's relying on a technique we could basically call ambient cognitive dissonance.
Well, that's a great term. Explain how that works in practice here.
Okay, so the author takes this setting of ultimate luxury billionaire cabins, catered meals, pristine lakes, and pollutes it with primal disgust.
To keep the reader on edge.
Yes. The story is packed with creepy, uncomfortable details. There are constant mentions of daddy long-legged spiders crawling around, right? And there's an outbreak of head lice among the guests at a billionaire wedding.
So gross.
Frank also finds a secret stash hidden in a bathroom in the couple's Boston penthouse. It forces the reader's brain into a state of intense anxiety.
Because the environment is simultaneously signaling extreme safety and extreme biological danger.
Exactly. And it escalates to absurd heights. At one point, a dead body literally washes ashore at this estate, and the 300 wedding guests seemingly just ignore it to keep the party going.
That is insane.
In another scene, a reviewer mentioned someone casually throwing up in a bowl of cereal, and everyone just acts like it's totally normal.
It's this surreal bubble of privilege where horrible things happen and people just look the other way.
But, you know, when an author stretches reality and tension that far, when they build that much ambient cognitive dissonance, the payoff has to be monumental.
The release of that tension absolutely has to match the buildup.
And this brings us to the ending, which is, without a doubt, the most controversial part of the entire novel.
It really split the audience.
It did. According to the sources, there is a massive jaw-dropping twist right around the 50% mark. Several reviewers noted they were totally blindsided by it.
But it's the final act that left so many readers confused, divided, and in some cases, pretty angry.
Yeah, this is where we see the collision of genre expectations. The author employs what some readers call his signature long, leisurely wrap-up.
Yes, one reviewer actually called it a happily ever after for thrillers.
A HEA for thrillers. He takes the time to spell out in long form exactly how everything works out for everyone involved.
For some readers, this was deeply satisfying. They loved getting all the answers and the closure.
But for many others, it felt abrupt in its execution, vague in its justice, and lacked a true, punchy resolution.
It left them feeling like the suspense they just spent 300 pages building up just sort of fizzled out into a domestic therapy session.
So what does this all mean? Why are authors struggling to stick the landing in these books? Does a long, drawn-out resolution fundamentally ruin the suspense we just invested in?
This raises an important question about what readers actually demand from hybrid genres. It's a psychological tug-of-war.
How so?
Well, readers come to a thriller wanting the visceral shock of a twist. They want the car crash. But when a book is heavily infused with domestic drama, they also crave emotional closure.
They want the physical therapy to heal the familial wounds.
Exactly. It is incredibly difficult for an author to deliver a sharp, shocking thriller ending that also ties up deep emotional trauma with a neat, satisfying bow.
You really can't have the shock of a sudden impact and the slow healing of therapy in the exact same moment.
Precisely. And in this case, watching Karma eventually slowly find these unlikable characters was the only truly satisfying payoff for many reviewers.
They didn't necessarily get a high-octane shootout.
No, they just got the satisfaction of seeing toxic people get their just desserts over time.
We want justice, even if it's served at a glacial pace. So, to recap our deep dive today, The Last One at the Wedding is a highly polarizing, deeply atmospheric domestic drama.
It's a story fundamentally about the isolating nature of extreme wealth, toxic family secrets, and the desperate lengths a flawed father will go to.
Yeah. Whether you would find yourself moved to tears by Frank's desperation or whether you'd find his prejudices completely insufferable, the reviews make one thing absolutely clear.
The book acts as a fascinating mirror for our own biases.
Exactly. Regarding class, privilege, and the lengths we will go to for family.
And as you think about that mirror, I want to leave you with a final thought. It's drawn directly from the very last line of the book, which one of our reviewers highlighted.
I'll lay it on us.
The line is, "Some people can't be helped." In a thriller genre that is completely obsessed with heroes saving the day, with parents rescuing their children against all odds, I want you to mull over this idea.
Okay.
What if the most terrifying realization isn't that a wealthy family is harboring a dark, murderous secret? What if the true horror is the realization that sometimes estrangement is actually the safest option?
Wow. That brings us right back to our glitching GPS from the start. Sometimes the only way to survive a dangerous ride is to refuse to get in the car in the first place.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We invite you to keep exploring the sources and the complex, messy world of family thrillers on your own. See you next time.